Some stories are just all about survival against the odds. I mean, imagine a company that stared death in the face not just once, but twice. A company that was literally hours away from being wiped off the map, and yet they managed to claw their way back to become one of the most respected, most loved brands in the entire world. We're talking, of course, about the incredible story of Bergische Motorenwerke, or as you definitely know it, BMW.
The ultimate driving machine. You've heard it a million times, right? But for BMW, this has been so much more than just a slick tagline for, almost 50 years now. It's really their mission statement. It's the promise that gets to the very soul of the company. So the big question is, how do they earn the right to say that? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go way, way back to the beginning.
All right, so to really get what makes a BMW, you can't start on the road. Nope, you have to look up, way up, into the skies. Because that obsession with performance, it wasn't born on a racetrack. It was forged in the dogfights of World War I.
So just try to imagine this for a second. You're the best in the world at one thing, and then suddenly someone tells you, you can't do that anymore. Ever. That's exactly what happened to BMW in 1919. The Treaty of Versailles came down and banned them from building the one thing that made them who they were: aircraft engines. I mean, talk about a crisis. They were facing total collapse. So what do? They make anything they can to survive. Seriously, pots, pans, railway brakes, you name it. But see, at their core, they were engineers. They lived to build engines, and by 1923, they just couldn't hold it in anymore. They poured all of that incredible aerospace knowledge into their very first vehicle, the R32 motorcycle. And let me tell you, it was a masterpiece of engineering. Just 5 years after that, they're building cars. This wasn't just some business pivot. It was a powerful statement. You just can't keep great engineers down.
Okay, so surviving World War I was tough, for sure. But the chaos after World War II, man, that brought the company to the absolute edge. This wasn't just another crisis. This was a full-blown near-death experience. And what happened next would shape the company forever.
All right, picture this. It's 1959. Germany is booming. They're in the middle of their Wirtschaftswunder, their economic miracle. Things are looking up for everyone, except, inside BMW. For them, it was a total disaster. Their best factories were gone, either destroyed or stuck behind the Iron Curtain. And the company was just bleeding cash. Why? Because they were building totally the wrong cars for the market.
So here's the crazy situation they were in. It was this impossible balancing act. On one hand, you've got these gorgeous V8-powered luxury cars they called Baroque Angels. Sounds great, right? The problem was they were losing a ton of money, like 4,000 Deutschmarks, on every single one they sold. Yikes. So on the other hand, to try and stay afloat, they were building the teeny-tiny Isetta bubble car. Now that little thing kept the lights on, but the profits were so thin, so razor-thin, they couldn't even begin to cover the huge losses from the big cars. They were trapped in a financial death spiral, and it was pulling them down fast.
So the banks step in, and they've got a solution. Their big idea? Just sell the company. And the buyer just waiting to swoop in was none other than their biggest, most bitter rival, Daimler-Benz. Mercedes. As far as anyone could see, this was it. Game over for an independent BMW. I mean, you can just feel the tension in that room. It's December 9th, 1959. The board is literally about to sign the papers, hand the company over to their arch-rival. It's a done deal. But then, something amazing happens. The little guys, the small shareholders, the dealers, the folks on the factory floor, they just refuse to let it happen. They stand up, they start asking really tough questions. They point out flaws in the numbers. They're rallying around this new little car they believe in, and they cause such a scene that the whole vote has to be delayed. A hostile takeover, stopped dead in its tracks by pure, raw passion.
And this is the moment where everything changes. There's a major shareholder there, a guy named Herbert Quandt, and he's watching all this go down. His own bankers are in his ear telling him sell, cut your losses, get out. But instead, he's so moved by the loyalty he just saw, that incredible passion, that he does the absolute unthinkable. He ignores all the financial advice, reaches into his own pocket, and doubles down. He increases his personal stake to 50%. Just like that, in one single move, Herbert Quandt single-handedly saves BMW from being wiped out.
So they survived. But surviving the takeover was really just the first battle. Now came the hard part. BMW had to actually prove it was worth saving. They got a second chance, sure, but they were desperate. They needed a hit, a real hit product. And maybe even more than that, they needed to figure out who they were supposed to be.
Well, that answer came in 1962, and it was called the Neue Klasse, which just means new class. And look, this wasn't just another new car. It was a whole new idea. It was small, it was nimble, it was incredibly well built, and it was an absolute blast to drive. It just perfectly captured the spirit of this new, confident, modern Germany. And the public, they went absolutely crazy for it. The orders just poured in. The Neue Klasse didn't just rescue BMW, it defined BMW. Seriously, this car was the blueprint for basically every single modern sports sedan that came after it.
Okay, so the car is a smash hit in Europe. Fantastic. But now BMW has its sights set on the big prize, America. The problem? Nobody in the US knew what a BMW was. They were starting from scratch. They needed more than a car. They needed a story, a promise. And this is where a marketing genius named Bob Lutz and a small, hungry ad agency enter the picture.
And what they came up with was just 3 simple words: the ultimate driving machine. Genius. And the brilliance of it was that it was totally honest. This wasn't some made-up advertising fluff. It was a promise their engineers were already delivering on every single day. It didn't talk about features, it tapped right into the feeling you get behind the wheel, that emotional kick. And then BMW did something truly remarkable. They just stuck with it, for decades, relentlessly, until the slogan in the company became the exact same thing in people's minds. It captured the same idea as their German slogan, Freude am Fahren, which literally just means joy of driving.
And you really have to put this into perspective with their competition. Think about it. Back then, Mercedes-Benz basically owned luxury. Their whole thing was the best or nothing. Then you had Audi, kind of the new kid on the block, carving out their space with progress through technology. BMW was so smart, they didn't even try to fight those guys on their home turf. Instead, they staked out a claim that was all their own. They weren't selling you status, they weren't selling you gadgets, they were selling you the pure, awesome feeling of the drive itself.
Now, after all that success, you'd think it'd be smooth sailing from there on out, right? Well, not so fast, because in the 1990s, BMW made a huge mistake, a massive misstep that almost brought the company to its knees. It was a chapter so painful, they nicknamed it the English Patient. So here's what happened. In 1994, BMW decided it was time to get bigger, so they bought the entire British Rover Group. The idea was, hey, we'll get cool brands like Land Rover and we can get into the mainstream car market. But oh man, it was a complete catastrophe. The two company cultures were like oil and water. Rover's factories were ancient. And to top it all off, a super strong British pound made the whole thing a financial nightmare. By the year 2000, this deal was just a giant black hole, swallowing hundreds of millions of pounds every single year. But even in the middle of all that wreckage, that billion-dollar mistake, they found a little diamond in the rough. As they were selling off all the pieces of Rover, they made one absolutely critical decision. They decided to keep one tiny, almost forgotten brand, Mini, and they poured all their engineering magic into it, totally reinventing this British icon for a new century. And the new Mini, it was a global smash hit. It was a really, really expensive lesson for sure, but it proved that even out of a massive failure, you can still find a path to a brand new success.
And that brings us right back to today. We've come full circle. Because right now, BMW is facing another one of those massive do-or-die challenges, the end of the gasoline engine as we know it. And to find their way through this electric future, they're reaching back into their own history and reviving the very name that saved them once before, the Neue Klasse.
And let's be clear, this is not just some nostalgia trip. They're not just slapping an old name on a new car. No way. This is a fundamental, top-to-bottom reinvention. We're talking about a massive leap forward, an 800-volt system that means you can charge your car ridiculously fast, brand new battery tech that gives you 30% more range, and this wild new iDrive system that projects info across the entire windshield. This is BMW's big statement. They're not just trying to survive the electric age, they're trying to own it.
So, this all leads us to the one big, crucial question. For more than 100 years, BMW's entire identity, its very soul, has been built on the sound of a roaring engine and the feel of perfect handling. But what happens in a future of silent electric motors, a future where cars might even drive themselves? What does it even mean to be the ultimate driving machine in a world like that? Can that feeling, that pure joy of driving, even survive? That's the challenge BMW is up against right now. And however they answer it, well, that's going to define their next 100 years.